Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I know this is kind of a crazy time right now in the province. But with this webinar, we just wanted to give a high-level overview of the program and the application process and give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you have. So one of the questions that we have gotten a lot is around the eligibility requirement of hard technology and why this is and what that means. So hard technology is physical science-based technology that generally consists of at least some kind of hardware component. And the reason why the program focuses specifically on this is this was identified to be a specific gap in the Alberta Innovation System. Hardware is generally more capital intensive than software and conventional goods. It requires a lot longer to commercialize, and as a result, can be a lot riskier. So it's difficult to attract investment. We've also gotten a lot of questions around program eligibility. So with this, a few key things to note. In order to be eligible for the program, you must be an advanced technical graduate, graduating within the last 5 years of the current date, or planning to complete your degree within at least a few months of starting the program. So we've gotten a few questions about this. We've recommended to people that they plan to at least finish their degree by September 2020. We plan to start this next cohort of companies in June or July. So it would be ideal if you could finish up your defense by then. But we understand that some people's timelines might not necessarily line up with that. You must be the primary technology innovator. So what does that mean? We know that IP is generally developed by a team. But the GreenSTEM Fellows should really have been one of the contributors on this team, or have a very strong understanding of the underlying science. Reasonable access to IP. So this is one of the things that can really make or break the success of a technology company. The fellows should, at minimum, have begun to execute a plan to access the IP that they will need through licensing, formal agreements with other inventors, by other means. And it would be ideal if you have already secured access to the IP that you'll need. So what exactly is a primary decision maker in a startup? The intention behind GreenSTEM is that the people applying to the program will be entrepreneurs, will be the CEO of the company. So if you're in a position right now where that doesn't really align with your situation, and there's going to be someone else who's going to be the CEO or CTO, or really be making the main decisions of the business, you may want to contact us to see if you're a fit with the program or not. Commitment to the fellowship as your full-time job. So one of the components of GreenSTEM is a salary stipend, and the reason why we've done that is to give people who'd like to be technology entrepreneurs the opportunity to focus on that full-time 24/7, to not be doing it off of the side of their desk. And with that, we expect that they'll be focusing 100% of their time on making sure that that's a success. So we limit the ability of participants to pursue other forms of work or other educational programming. Ad hoc training or seminars or workshops that are going to help you be a better entrepreneur, a better CEO. Of course, we encourage. But in terms of part-time education or things like that, it's very discouraged with the program because entrepreneurship, especially technology entrepreneurship, really does require. I think it's kind of a joke among entrepreneurs that requires 25/7 or 25/8. Like it requires even more time than you have to give it. Resident of Alberta with the legal right to work in Canada. So at the start of the program, you will have to live in the province. You will have to have the legal right to work in Canada. With the last cohort of companies, we did accept a number of international students. So during the application process, they had all taken significant steps to secure their permanent residency or citizenship. One aspect of the program is quarterly events that are held in Edmonton and Calgary. So you will be required to travel for those. Those are mandatory for fellows to participate in. And you also may have to travel for your other business responsibilities, going to trade shows and conferences to increase the scope of your network and increase awareness of your technology and your company. And lastly, committed to maintaining business operations in the province for 3 years. So GreenSTEM does invest quite a bit of money in the companies that participate in it. As a result, there is an expectation if the company is successful in graduating from the program and successful in maintaining operations for the short or medium term after they leave the program, that there will at least continue to be some component of operations that happen in Alberta. That being said, if it makes sense to expand operations of the company and have potentially satellite offices or people working in other provinces or in other countries, that's completely understandable. So what exactly is a GreenSTEM fellowship? What do you receive as a participant in the program? GreenSTEM runs for 2 years. So over that 2 years, if you're accepted into the program, as an individual, you will receive a $60,000 salary stipend per year, which includes benefits. Or if you apply and are accepted as a team of 2 people, you, as the team of 2, will receive $90,000 per year. On top of that, annually, participants receive about $70,000 in seed funding to be put towards technical and business-related activities. Entrepreneurial programming. So I did mention before these quarterly events. So as a component of that, GreenSTEM Fellows receive targeted technology entrepreneurship programming. There also may be additional programming that's offered through your host university. Mentorship and network development. As part of the program, we require participants to have a technical and a business mentor. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. And there is some activities to support you in building out your network with the quarterly events as well. And then lastly, one of the things that makes GreenSTEM a bit more unique is with the partnerships that we have with the universities. A part of that is facilitating access to technical and lab facilities, which your technical mentor will be a key part of. So what are we looking for when we are reviewing applications? We look at 3 different components over the entire application process. And first and foremost, we're really looking at the people that are applying. So GreenSTEM there's a lot of different outcomes that GreenSTEM is focusing on, but really it is a people program. It's designed to help people that want to pursue entrepreneurship build up those capabilities. So we're looking for passion and suitability towards entrepreneurship, clarity of roles between founders or co-founders and the rest of their team, and a long-term mindset and goals that align with the program's intent of developing lifelong entrepreneurs. With regards to the technology, we're looking primarily for novel or disruptive science, so something that is new, not repurposing processes or technology that already is commercial. And again, that access to intellectual property. So we need you to demonstrate at least that you have thought about that and what that is going to take. And then potential for short and midterm potential for commercialization and access to market. So is there a market opportunity? Is this, a documented industry need? And, as the program is called GreenSTEM and there is an emission reduction focus, we look as a bit more of a soft criteria, potential for positive environmental impact through emission reduction and through other means as well. And that you will require use of the university facilities and knowledge to support you in developing and commercializing the technology. And then in terms of the project, we're looking at, has the applicant thought about risks associated with the project and how they're going to mitigate those? The quality of planning or progress in securing partnerships and raising capital, and sort of where the technology falls on the development cycle. So basic or early stage applied research projects are not eligible under the program. We have a soft focus on technology readiness level between 3 and 5, with 3 being the stage where R&D is really initiated and really the earliest that we're looking to support. So a little bit more on this idea of technical and business mentors and what exactly is the role of the fellow and the business mentor and the technical mentor. So GreenSTEM is quite non-traditional in its fellowship model. So it's very important that there is clarity and common understanding of roles between the fellow and predominantly the technical mentor, but also with the business mentor. So the GreenSTEM fellow should be the main decision maker, and their role is to really drive decision making of the company, prioritize business and technical decisions, develop a budget to maximize seed funding, and then draw upon their technical and business mentors when they feel that they need their support or their guidance or advice with what they're doing. The business mentor's role is to enable business-related success of the fellow and the company. So ideally, this person is a serial entrepreneur or a seasoned entrepreneur who has experience starting and scaling a technology company in, the target industry or in a similar industry. This person can be located in Alberta or outside of Alberta. But their purpose is to really provide business-oriented advice and act as a sounding board for business issues, and help the fellow build out their business network, through access to industry and angel venture networks and things like that. So we expect that the fellow will hold regular meetings with this person. This is sort of, up to the fellow to manage for themselves. But if someone is accepted into the program and has not identified a business mentor, that's okay. We don't expect that, some of the strong applicants that are accepted into the program will have access to these kinds of people. So if that is the case, EDTT will provide support to that person in helping them try and identify the right fit. The technical mentor's role is to enable technical success of the fellow. So this person needs to be located in the university that the fellow is going to be hosted out of. And the reason for that is this person is really going to provide access to the lab and technical infrastructure that the fellow will need. So in addition to that, their purpose is to provide technical and scientific advice and act as a sounding board for technical issues, and support the fellow in accessing critical pre-existing intellectual property. So, when selecting this person, it might be quite valuable to think about their experience with commercializing IP and sort of what their stance has been in the past with IP that they have been a part of developing, and letting students or other people run with that and start their own businesses. So with these people, it is encouraged for fellows to secure a written commitment of their intent to act in good faith as a mentor. Applicants may also wish to consider non-disclosure and conflict of interest agreements, recognizing that multiple business and technical opportunities may be discussed in confidence. So getting into the meat a little bit more around what GreenSTEM is and sort of what we are expecting to get from the people that are accepted into the program. Over the 2 years, as I mentioned, there will be events about every 3 months that rotate between Edmonton and Calgary. So all companies must be represented at those events by at least one participant. So if co-founders and not both co-founders can make it to the event, it's okay if only one goes, but at least one person needs to be there. Business and technical mentors may also be invited to participate in these quarterly events. In terms of reporting, there are some reporting requirements for fellows. Companies are required to submit both a backwards-looking quarterly report and a forwards-looking quarterly plan before each quarterly event. And the reason for that is, as part of these events, they will be meeting with an advisory board, and those documents are used to sort of brief the advisory board and make sure that the conversation that's coming out of that meeting is really as valuable to the fellow as possible. And feedback. So GreenSTEM is a pilot program, and as a result of this, we ask for a lot of feedback. So surveys are one of the mechanisms that we've leveraged to ensure that the pilot is continuing to evolve in alignment with what the participants are expecting to get out of it. So if you are accepted into the program, please be prepared to spend a few minutes after each event every 3 months filling out a survey. They really are very, very valuable. And evolution. So again, this is a pilot program, and we've ironed out a lot of kinks in the last year, but that being said, it's quite likely that over the next 2 years there will be aspects of the program that change, ideally for the better, but this is also something that you should be expecting. So in terms of the application timeline, hopefully you all know that the expression of interest is closing next Monday. Following that, there will be a few weeks for the evaluation committee to review and put forward, a selection of applications that they would like to see proceed to the next step. Interviews are planned to be held between April 14th and April 21st in Edmonton and Calgary. That being said, that may change. The timeline may change, and we are looking right now at potentially having those over Skype rather than in person, just given everything that's happening in the province with COVID-19 right now. Following that, a decision will be made almost immediately, and the people that are selected to move forward will receive a full proposal template to be submitted on May 4th. And then we are planning for a pitch event, a pitch competition in late May, but again, this is tentative and is subject to change. Before I get into anything on the application side of things, if anyone has any questions, please be sure to be asking them via the chat function, and we will do our best to answer them as we go along. So if you haven't started your application yet, the application portal is accessible through the GreenSTEM webpage. And that, when you click on it, will take you to something that looks like this, where you'll be able to if you haven't yet created a My Alberta digital identity, which is really just you have to provide a bit of demographic information to get access to an account that will allow you to access provincial program services and resources. So once you create a MADI, you'll be able to sign in, and your page that you see will probably not be this populated, but at the bottom there should be, under programs, GreenSTEM, and you can choose to create a new expression of interest by clicking on the blue button to the right. So if you have used the portal to apply for GreenSTEM in the past, or maybe access other government programming, I do recommend that you create a new organization. If you use an older organization that has other information attached to it, it will auto-populate some of the expression of interest, and we won't actually be able to change that information. So it's just best to create a new organization. And that will take you to the application. So you can choose to apply as an individual or as a team. A few things to be aware of. Again, your degree must be either a master's or a PhD. Your discipline must fall within science, technology, engineering, or math. Your institution, please note, does not need to be in Alberta. And again, your graduation date must be within 5 years of the current date. And if prospective, it's recommended that it be before September. If that is not the case, then I recommend that you contact someone listed on the GreenSTEM webpage and see if there are maybe any extenuating circumstances or anything that can be done just to explore that a little bit more. We ask for identification of which industries the technology has applications in, focusing on industries that are most relevant for emissions reduction. And we also ask you to identify the TRL level at the current state and the projected level at the end of the next 2 years. Next, we get a little bit into the meat of the application. So the project overview is really your opportunity to give us an introduction to you and your company, and what about the project warrants support from the government. With attended outcomes, I suggest being specific about what you're expecting you will be able to achieve by the end of the project in terms of business and technology metrics. And with emission reduction potential, we're not expecting you to be overly specific here, but quantification does help. And note that you will be asked to expand upon this rationale with supplementing calculations in the full proposal. So I'd recommend taking a look at the GHG emission quantification resources available through the GreenSTEM FAQs. And then there are some declarations. So this section provides us with a bit more background on you and project. So application or receipt of other funding will be viewed positively. GreenSTEM funding is intended to provide fellows with kind of a step up in accessing other innovation funding, and it should be leveraged heavily by the end of the 2-year runway. While GreenSTEM is not solely focused on supporting gender-based concepts, program delivery does strive to include support for initiatives that help to address issues around equal representation and equitable access in STEM disciplines, industry, and the clean tech sector. And next, so I would recommend, if you have not looked at the supplementary questions, to look at those as soon as possible, because this is really where the majority of the application is. But before we get to that, just a note on the acknowledgement. So please be aware that this just gives notice that as part of your application, EDTT may be conducting reference checks. We also may share your application with other provincial or federal funding agencies to confirm details or to confirm their interest in supporting your project. It also provides notice that if accepted into the program, your company and technology will likely be featured in Government of Alberta announcements. Supplementary questions, which I don't know if it's really supplementary, it's really the questions for the application. But you know, as I spoke about before, IP is definitely a cornerstone of the application. And I think it's most important for you to emphasize the current state of control of your IP and your expected or completed course of action in securing access to the IP that you need for your project. With required resources, it's most important to emphasize your awareness of business development in identifying what business expertise or knowledge you don't have that you will need in order to be successful over the next 2 years, and the lab facilities and R&D or technical expertise that you require, particularly if this is outside of the university that your project will be based at. With the project team section, the majority of focus is intended to be placed on you and your co-founder, your expertise and skills that you think make you competitive in applying to the program. And in addition to this, please provide brief detail on other team members that your company has or people that will be providing support to you. And business and technical mentors. So a couple notes on this. Co-founders can have the same business and technical mentors, or they can have different business and technical mentors. Again, the business mentors should ideally be a seasoned technology entrepreneur, or even better, a serial entrepreneur. And if you cannot identify a person that fits those criteria, we are more than happy to help you in doing that. And your technical mentor should be someone at the university who can provide you access to lab and technical infrastructure, and ideally someone who has an underlying knowledge, of the science area that you're working in. And once you've completed all of that and given it a couple of looks over and feel comfortable submitting it, then feel free to hit submit. If a change is required to your application, please do contact the EDT program team listed on the website, as there may be fixes that we're able to help you in making that you identify before March 23rd. Yeah, so that is kind of the end of my spiel. Maybe we'll open it up to questions on chat if you have any. So I can kind of only speak, so with regards to Thomas F., your question about your chances getting through the pitch, I can really only speak to what happened with the first cohort and the first intake process, which was the majority of people that made it through the full proposal and pitched during the pitch competition were accepted into the program. So I think we had 2 people who pitched who weren't accepted. So Jackson, your question about additional files, there is, which, so you see the other 1, other 2, other 3, that's where you can submit other files that you have. But please be aware that everything that you absolutely need or want the evaluation committee to review must be in, you know, the application form, because there is a chance that the supplementary documents will not be reviewed, just pending the number of applications that we receive. Yeah, you can include tables right in the application. I'm not sure about including them in the web form, but you should be able to include them in the supplementary questions in the Word document. So Apostle, on your question about technical and business advisors joining the applicant in the interview, no, we just limit the interview to the GreenSTEM fellow. And the reason for that, again, goes back to, you know, the fellow being the decision maker of the company. So it's really up to you to advocate for yourself and your company and for the technology and demonstrate, you know, your fit with the program, and that, yeah. Lorena, thanks for your question. So the interesting thing with GreenSTEM is, because it's a partnership with 3 different universities, there are some differences between how the program functions at the 3 universities, just because there are big differences in how the universities themselves function. So that is a little bit specific to which university you'll be at. But for the most part, the seed funding is allocated to the university, to the BPR office, or, you know, a common fund holder, and then the company will submit receipts or requests for reimbursement, and based on that and approval of those things and alignment of expenditures with eligible expenses, you will be reimbursed for that. Hi, Thomas. Yeah, it's definitely possible to chat with someone on the phone. If you'd like to give me a call, you know, sometime in the next couple of days, I'd be more than happy to talk with you about that. I'm Jessica Ambler, so my contact information is listed on the GreenSTEM website. To Apostle, no, we do not allow the use of PowerPoint presentations during the interviews. And the reason for that is the interviews are, you know, there is a structure to the interviews. They're informally structured, but there are certain things that we need to get out of them. So if you make it to the pitch, I would save your PowerPoint for that. Hi, Milad. Thanks for your question. With regards to whether the co-founder can be a university professor, it depends a little bit on what you mean by that. So if you mean, the co-founder through the GreenSTEM program who would, be receiving salary funding, then no, they cannot be a university professor. But if you mean it as, someone who has an equity share in the company, then yes, 100% yes, they can be a co-founder. That being said, you should be ready to prove that you are really the primary decision maker in the company. And on preference in selection of candidates through their degree or their university, no, there isn't really any preference for any specific degree or university. Really, what we're looking at is the person. Are they entrepreneurially inclined? Do they have the skills to make them a successful entrepreneur? And then the technology. Unfortunately, there is a set number of fellowships for this intake, just because this is the final intake for the pilot, and we have a set amount of money, for the 3 years that the pilot runs. That number is a little bit dependent on the number of individuals versus the number of teams that we get applying. But it is possible that we'll get a lot of very, very high quality applicants, and then it will just be a very competitive process. Mohammed, no, the technical and business mentors cannot be the same. The technical mentor, again, should be someone at the university, and it's quite likely that they do have experience commercializing IP or spinning out a business from the university. But we do require you to have, a business mentor who is solely business focused, who we will be providing you with some guidance solely on the business aspects of your project. So if you don't have anyone in mind for a business mentor, again, EDTT, will be able to provide you in support in doing that. Lorena, we don't necessarily need to see support letters from technical and business mentors. That's really up to you. We just ask that you identify to us who they are. If you'd like to include, support letters from industry or from, other colleagues that you have as part of your application, then that's great. But we don't really have any set parameters around what we would expect to see in those.
Hi, one more addition to the technical or business mentors and the letters. In some instances, and it is also in the terms of reference, the steering committee might have not an interview, but a chat with the mentors to ensure that there's a clear understanding of their roles and mutual relationship between the fellows and the mentors. Mm-hmm. And my name is Martin.
So to Jackson's question about whether there is a certain number of fellowships between each university, the pilot funding was distributed by universities. So they all have a set amount of funding that is left over from the first cohort of companies. So in short, to answer your question, yes, there is a select number of fellowships per university. Jason, unfortunately, we do require that both fellows on a team have graduated within 5 years. And the reason for that is we're really looking to support new entrepreneurs and develop new entrepreneurs and their business skill sets.
I would just add to it that there is no obstacle to have co-founder that is more than 5 years. Is not eligible for the financial support.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are lots of other mechanisms that you can go through to access funding like that, like MyTax or IRAP. Zongi, thanks for your question about incorporation. I think that this is a really good question. So it depends a little bit on which university you will be hosted by. So in the case of the University of Calgary, the companies are actually guests of the university, so they are required to incorporate at the start of the program. There's a little bit more flexibility at the University of Alberta.
Having said that, it's not absolutely necessary to be incorporated at the start of the fellowship, but incorporation opens many other possibilities. So all the participants from the first cohort are incorporated. Yeah, there is an expectation that you will have incorporated at some point over the 2 years. Hi, Mohammed. Thanks for your question about sort of selection criteria and evaluations. If you have taken a look at the program guide, there is quite a bit more detail in that document on how selections are made. But that being said, we're also looking at quite a large number of variables. So there isn't really any, checklist or cut and dry process that we go through. Applications are reviewed by a committee, and then based on, what's outlined in the program guide, that group of people makes a consensus-based decision on who progresses to the next stage in the application, and then who is finally accepted into the program. Hi, Lorena. Your question about company incorporation. Yes, it's completely okay if the company is already incorporated and has existed for a few years. Hi, Jason. So your question about an MBA in Sustainable Business in STEM is an interesting one. And I think the cut and dry case for this would be no. We don't view MBAs, even if they're specific to science or technology, to be equivalent to an advanced STEM degree. But that being said, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about this and get some more details around what the situation is. So maybe we could schedule a call offline, and I'll maybe give you send you an email after the webinar. Hi, Milad. Thanks for your question. So facilitating access to technical infrastructure at the university is one of the main purposes of the program. In order to reduce the capital costs that the company will have at its inception. In short, yes, you will definitely have access to research labs and machining shops at the university. So Lorena's question about COVID-19 and the interviews. Right now, we're currently looking into making all of the interviews via Skype. So, if there was a situation where someone needed to self-isolate, or something along those lines, then of course we would be open to scheduling a Skype interview instead of an in-person interview. Hi, Mohammed. Thanks for your question about the founder having a part-time job or a part-time postdoc.
we highly, highly discourage this. You know, that being said, we realize that in some instances, the intention of the postdoc is actually to commercialize the technology. Ultimately, this decision is made by the universities. So,
yeah, I would just add that this situation would be kind of splitting the responsibility, who is in charge of the company, because having the partial time postdoc, you are reporting to a faculty member at the university while you have to be responsible for your company. As we said, Jessica said before, that requires little more than 100% of dedication.
hi, Logan. It sounds like this is kind of a unique case that you have with having co-founded a different company and still being involved in that. So, you know, while it's not really in alignment with the spirit of GreenSTEM, you know, to be focusing on things outside of your work under the program, there really is no way for us to police that or to prevent that. So ultimately, I would say that you could still have a position with your original company and be focusing entirely on this new company. And I would say it's really up to you to do that and to manage your time effectively. So it seems like questions have petered out a little bit. So I think we'll stick around for a few more minutes if there are any last questions, but we'll probably be wrapping up the webinar in the next couple of minutes.
I would, Mohammed, on the IP, every IP case is specific, and it shouldn't really matter whether it is done through Tech Edmonton or not. What we would be asking for, what is your path to securing that IP? Because Tech Edmonton in this case is a service provider, and it's not necessarily controlling that IP. But it's a good question that is very specific, and we cannot answer it this way without knowing all the details. It's really up to you to show us that you have the good plan how to secure that IP.
All right, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. If you have any last-minute questions over the next week before you submit your applications, I'd highly recommend contacting myself, Jessica Ambler, or Jeff Bell. Our contact information is on the GreenSTEM website. I'd be more than happy to discuss any questions you have through email or over the phone. I see that we have some more people typing, so maybe I'll give it a couple more minutes. Okay. Yep. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon.